Hello and welcome. You're watching News Central Television. I am Judith TB. Here are some stories making headlines beyond the continent. Finally, a major breakthrough in transatlantic trade after months of tense negotiations and the looming threat of a full-blown trade war. The United States and the European Union have struck a sweeping agreement to reset tariffs and restore predictability between two of the world's biggest economic powers. But not everyone's convinced this is a fair deal. For News Central, international correspondent Afua Hagan has the story.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
It took a golf course summit, tough talk and a looming deadline, but the US and EU have clinched a high-stakes trade deal.
It's a very powerful deal. It's a very big deal. It's the biggest of all the deals. It will be the biggest of all the deals. So.
Instead of a 30% tariff, the EU will now face a flat 15% levy on exports to the US. That includes key sectors: cars, pharma, even semiconductors. In return, the EU is pledging $750 billion in American energy imports, part of its pivot away from Russian gas, and $600 billion in new investments in the US.
We have a deal. We have a trade deal between the two largest economies in the world. And it's a big deal. It's a huge deal. It will bring stability. It will bring predictability. That's very important for our businesses on both sides of the Atlantic. It's 15% tariffs across the board, all inclusive. The investments Mr. President just described.
Tariff carve-outs were agreed on some aircraft, chemicals and agricultural goods, but not everyone in Europe is celebrating. Germany's powerful exporters say the deal still hurts. France called it unbalanced, and Ireland says it regrets the 15% tariff rate. The deal also locks in billions in military purchases as Europe moves to boost its NATO commitments. But this was about more than just trade. Had talks collapsed, the EU was ready to retaliate with tariffs of its own on over $100 billion of US goods. That's been avoided for now. So a deal has been struck, but whether it lasts is another question, with critics warning the EU got the short end of the bargain and Trump calling it a win. Expect both sides to keep the pressure on. For News Central, I'm Afua Hagan.
50% tariffs.
There's been a firestorm of reactions across Europe since the deal was announced. France denounced the trade agreement between the European Union and the US as a submission on Monday, though other EU states largely backed it because they believe it averts an economically damaging trade war with Washington. And so to help us take a deeper dive into this story is geopolitical analyst Tebeyang Echu, and he joins me live from Washington, D.C. Mr. Echu, many thanks for joining us. It's perhaps now all settled after long tensions. So what's really in this deal to make the affected parties celebrate after all?
Yes, I think, but we first of all have to go back and see how we got to this point. Apparently, the scattered shots, threats by President Trump have really left many countries ruling as they scramble to cut deals before his August 1st deadline. And if you look at what brought Trump to this point before the start of his second term, the EU and the US have generally maintained lower tariffs levels. And the two of them seems to be the largest bilateral trading partners in the world, with around $2 trillion in annual trade. And together, both the EU and the US have about 44% of the global economy. But Trump has complained, even before during his first term, the EU surplus in trade, which showed that Americans were buying more from the European businesses than the other way around, and he wanted a way to really change that. So if you look at his immediate reaction is that of a celebration, that this is one of the biggest deal that has been signed, trade deals that have been signed so far. That is even comparing to what was done with Japan. But at the end of the day, despite the lingering unknowns, the deal still has helped to decrease the uncertainty, which has been what has characterized the markets, and has helped to bring clarity for European, predominantly car makers like BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Volvo, planes, and chemicals. If you see, oil prices have edged up today, Monday. European stocks have gone up. The tech and healthcare stocks have also gone up. I think the 15% rate is far better than the 20 to 30% that the markets had feared.
Right. As we talk about the percentage of this tariff deal, 15% tariffs on EU goods and a pledge to have the bloc invest $600 billion in the U.S. How is this a plus for the U.S., especially with that investment amount?
Well, let's not forget that even the 600 additional billion that they're supposed to invest is merely a political commitment that isn't legally binding. And I think Trump can take that and parade that within the U.S. political ecosystem. It's a huge win for him that these billions are going to be invested here. So it is still something that is left to be seen as far as that commitment is concerned.
And some analysts have complained that Sunday's deal was only a political agreement. I mean, you just said that this is not law binding regarding the $600 billion investment, and that it has left a lot of questions to be answered in terms of details, especially about wines and spirits in this tariff deal. What's your view about this argument by critics?
Again, if you look at irrespective of both sides, the price is going to be high for both sides, and will raise prices and slow growth. European exports would definitely lose competitiveness, and U.S. consumers could potentially pay the cost of the tariffs if the U.S. companies refuse to absorb most of the cost of these tariffs. But that is far from the far cry that it is lopsided. Some of the essential trading items like steel, some agro products have been exempted from this deal. So if you look at it, it's about 70% that is going to be subjected to the 15%. About 30%, some of it would be 0% trade, and some would be lower than the 15%.
Right. Donald Trump has reached deals with Japan, Vietnam, and the UK, and now the EU. These are bilateral moves. How does this affect the global economic order that has long run on a multilateral model?
And that is where a lot of people are quite worried with the nationalistic tendencies of President Trump. And understandably, the international relations is a game of interest. Everybody's trying to protect their own interest. That's basically what he is doing. It has actually gotten a lot of the global markets shaken because of the uncertainty. But irrespective of the outcome, the deals are beginning to give reassurances to the markets globally that there is some clarity on the direction in which things are going. But let's not also forget that the problem that the international community faces with the lack of U.S. leadership in these trade negotiations is every after 4 years, and there is a change in the White House, whosoever is going to come there has the ability to undo some of these agreements, the same way Trump has done to some of the agreements that Biden put in place. So that really also puts the uncertainty on a pause for now. But what would happen in the next election cycle? Is the world going to be subjected to this moving train or the back and forth of U.S. politics?
Right. I must say thank you so much, Mr. Echu, for taking out the time to join us there. Before I let you go, of late, France has deferred with the U.S. on the Gaza war. Let's bring that to fore here. And now they have also denounced the trade agreement between the European Union and the EU as a submission as well as EU states largely feel that it has averted an economically damaging trade war with Washington. How much does this count?
I I think the French are trying to reassert some level of authority in the global stage. But the French economy really is a dwarf when you compare that to the US. Politically, there's a lot of sentiment as far as Gaza is concerned. If you look at the images that are coming in there, they are reminiscent of the images that we saw in Ethiopia in the early 80s. So it's something of a moral position now as far as the French are concerned. But Macron should be very careful with what he's asking for. If there is this open warfare between the French and the US, do not forget that if you look at in Cameroon, for example, there is a bloc there called the Southern Cameroons or Ambazonians who are also calling for a separate state. Should Trump and the US administration also pay France in return by recognizing the party of Cameroon, the two English-speaking regions, as an independent state. So this is going to open a Pandora box, and we got to be very careful with what is going on right now.
I must say thank you again, Atru, for taking out the time to join us, giving us a bit of insight as EU members embrace a new deal with US. Once again, thank you. Let's go on a short break, shall we? When we return, UN chief issues Gaza SOS. Details of this and more after the break. Stay with us. Hey, welcome back. Top US and Chinese economic officials resumed talks in Stockholm on Monday to resolve long-standing economic disputes at the center of a trade war between the world's top two economies, aiming to extend a truce by 3 months. U.S. Treasury Chief Scott Bessent was part of a U.S. negotiating team that arrived at Rosenbad, the Swedish Prime Minister's office in central Stockholm, in the early afternoon. China's Vice Premier Li Long was also seen at the venue on video footage. China is facing an August 12th deadline to reach a durable tariff agreement with President Donald Trump's administration after Beijing and Washington reached preliminary deals in May and June to end weeks of escalating tit-for-tat tariffs and a cutoff of rare earth minerals. And now to Ukraine war. In a significant diplomatic update, U.S. President Donald Trump has announced a new tightened deadline for Russia to end its war in Ukraine. Speaking from Turnberry, United Kingdom, President Trump said he will give Russian President Vladimir Putin just, quote, 10 or 12 days to bring an end to the conflict. Addressing reporters alongside UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Trump expressed frustration with the lack of progress as tensions persist in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. This move signals increased U.S. impatience and sets a tight time frame for potential diplomatic breakthroughs.
Quickly, I'm going to make a new deadline of about 10 or 12 days from today. There's no reason in waiting. There's no reason in waiting. It's 50 days. I want to be generous, but we just don't see any progress being made. You know, Russia could be so rich right now. Instead, they spend all their money on war. They spend everything on war and killing people, and it doesn't make sense to me. I thought he would want to end this thing quickly. I really felt it was going to end, but every time I think it's going to end, he kills people.
Could a meeting help, and are you considering, has been proposed to meet in Turkey in August?
I'm not, you know, I'm not so interested.
Still in Ukraine, pro-Ukrainian hacking group Silent Cow has claimed responsibility for a cyber attack on Russia's national airline Aeroflot, which forced the carrier to cancel dozens of flights. The group said it undertook the operation together with Belarusian cyber partisans, a self-styled hacktivism group that opposes President Alexander Lukashenko and says it wants to liberate Belarus from dictatorship. Silent Crow said on Telegraph that its prolonged and large-scale operation completely destroyed Aeroflot's IT systems. Aeroflot said it had cancelled more than 40 flights, mostly within Russia, but also including routes to Belarus and Armenia, which the Kremlin said was worrying. Away from that and off to Asia, as Thailand and Cambodia's leaders agreed to an unconditional ceasefire on Monday after 5 days of combat along their jungle-clad frontier that killed at least 36 people. Nearly 300,000 people have fled as the two sides fired artillery as well as rockets and guns in a battle over the long-disputed area, which is home to a smattering of ancient temples. The flare-up was the deadliest since violence raged sporadically from 2008 to 2011 over the territory. Reading a joint statement from the leaders of both countries after peace talks, Malaysia Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim said they had agreed an immediate and unconditional ceasefire with effect from midnight Monday.
The government of Malaysia, Cambodia and Thailand issued this joint press release following the special meeting chaired, hosted and witnessed by Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim Putrajaya and participated by Cambodia's Prime Minister Samdech Mahathir Dipadej Hun Manet and Thailand's Acting Prime Minister Kumtham Vijayachai, and co-organized by the United States of America with the active participation of the People's Republic of China to promote a peaceful resolution to the ongoing situation. Prime Minister Hun Manet and Acting Prime Minister Kumtham Vijayachai have expressed their positions and willingness to immediate ceasefire and return to normalcy. Both Cambodia and Thailand reached a common understanding as follows. 1. An immediate and unconditional ceasefire with effect from 24 hours local time, midnight, on 28th July 2025, tonight. This is a vital first step towards de-escalation and the restoration of peace and security.
A gunman killed 5 security guards and wounded 3 other people in a mass shooting at a popular fresh food market in Thailand's capital on Monday. The suspect opened fire with a gun-type weapon at the Tor market in Bangkok's Bang Su district at 12:31 p.m. local time before taking his own life. The shooting stemmed from a personal dispute with the suspect, a former market employee holding a long-running grudge against one of the security guards. And away from that now, as 3 people were killed and several others injured when a regional passenger train derailed into a wooded area in southwestern Germany on Sunday. About 100 passengers were aboard the train when the accident occurred at around 6:10 p.m. local time near the town of Riedlingen in Baden-Württemberg state. Now, police initially said 4 people had been killed before correcting their statement to 3 victims. Authorities declined to elaborate on the number of injured or how seriously hurt they were, though tabloid Bild cited emergency workers saying there were 50 injured. German's rail operator Deutsche Bahn confirmed several deaths and numerous injured.
Haben nun 3 Tote zu beklagen, 41 Verletzte, darunter schwer und schwerstverletzte. Die genaue Anzahl kann ich Ihnen jetzt nicht nennen, wird sich im Laufe dieser Tage ermitteln lassen. Zur Unfallursache können wir bis jetzt sagen, dass wir davon ausgehen, dass es aufgrund eines Starkwetterereignisses zu einem Hangrutsch kam, dort vorne, wo ich vorhin war, und aufgrund dessen eine Entgleisung des Zuges stattgefunden hat.
Es ist ein sehr, sehr schweres Unglück mit ganz schweren Folgen. Und das rüttelt uns natürlich alle auf, das ist klar. Und wir werden jetzt natürlich alles tun, dass es aufgeklärt wird. Aber wichtig ist, dass wir heute mit allen, die davon betroffen sind, mittrauern, mitfühlen und einfach mitgehen mit dem schweren Schicksal, das sie erlitten haben.
And that's all the major headlines we can take from beyond the continent. Now, do remember that if you see anything out there on the roads, make sure to send us your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number now showing on the screen. To follow us on social media, we're at News Central TV on all social media platforms. You can always watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422 on our newest platform, that's GoTV channel 23. We're also on Star Times channel 274. Find us on Afua TV, and also you can stream us live on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith at TV. Good night.